The Planning Board furthering the discussion of a new development on James Street. Tonight, developers appeared before the Planning Board seeking approval on their preliminary site plan, but many residents are against that idea. Western Mass News reporter Maria Wilson is live for us in studio with the latest about the possible development. Maria?
Chris, I spoke with many residents today who tell me that they are concerned about the disruptions a new business could bring to their quiet neighborhoods.
It is nice and quiet here. Keep it that way.
Ongoing talks about the possibility of another drive-through coffee shop coming to the Memorial Drive area has many nearby residents like Kristi Bart concerned.
Mostly I get concerned about the drive-throughs and the noise, the trash, because I would like to think that people are going to pick up everything that they don't.
And others sharing in Bart's worry. Sue Nimchik lives on James Street. She says the area already has enough traffic as it is.
It's dangerous. It's a location. Wrong, wrong, wrong.
Nimchik arguing the Memorial Drive Rotary is already too dangerous.
Does even Starbucks know about this? Because they shouldn't be just concerned about the quality of their coffee. How about the quality of life and public safety?
My mom owns 2 homes in Chicopee. In the neighborhood of this proposed Starbucks, and she has zero. I mean, her quality of life, her ability to enjoy her own property that she purchased is at stake.
Some Chicopee City councilors say they hear their constituents' concerns.
Because I think there's some serious safety concerns with this property.
But proponents of the development say a new Starbucks will not raise current traffic volume, but instead serve the thousands of daily motorists that already pass through the area. But neighbors are skeptical, saying that this kind of change isn't welcomed.
Let our neighborhoods stay peaceful the way they are.
And just a short time ago, the Chicopee Planning Board voted to approve the preliminary site plans as long as the developers take some of the neighbors' concerns into consideration. These plans will be presented before the full Chicopee City Council. For now, reporting live in studio, Maria Wilson, Western Mass News.